Welcome back. So last class we have discussed the process of megasporogenesis, right? So our male is ready, that is pollen grain is ready, and the female is ready, embryo site, for the fusion. So the fusion to take place, what is necessary? Pollination is necessary, right? The pollen grain has to transfer with the help of wind or insect or any other agents into the female body, and then the fertilization will take place, right? So the pollination need to carry it out now. So now in this class we will discuss pollination and the types of pollination. So this male gametophyte, that is pollen grain, has to transfer with the help of wind or some any other agents into the female body, into the embryo site. Then the fusion will take place, and that process is carried out by pollination. So pollination, what is pollination? Transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma, right? Transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma is known as pollination. Got it? So that is pollination. Now pollination are of two types. Self-pollination and cross-pollination. Okay, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination, where they pollinate itself, they do not require any external agent, while in cross-pollination, of course, they require other certain external agents. So in self-pollination is again divided into two types. Self-pollination is again divided into two types. They are autogamy. Please remember the words, okay? Autogamy and geitonogamy. Spelling, be careful. Geitonogamy, autogamy, geitonogamy. They are self-pollination. We need to know its definition, very important. What is autogamy? Autogamy is the transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of the same flower of the same plant. Understood? Transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of the same flower of the same plant. Transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of same flower of the same plant. Now read it out, you will understand, right? Nicely. I hope you can see. Transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of same flower of the same plant. That pollination is known as autogamy. The pollination takes place in the same flower, in one particular flower, okay? In one particular flower of the same plant. Got it? That is autogamy. Write nicely and read it out at least twice or thrice. You will understand yourself. Next, geitonogamy. In geitonogamy, what happened? In geitonogamy, transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. Transfer of pollen grains from anther I will write from this, okay, sentence. Transfer of pollen grains, you write yourself. Transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. Understood? That is gatonogamy. Transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. Okay? Of the same plant. Read it out, you will understand. That is gatonogamy. So self-pollination are of two types, autogamy and gatonogamy. Well, in self-pollination, the external agent is not required. The pollination takes place by itself. So autogamy, transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of same flower of the same plant. In gatonogamy, the transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower. Okay, another flower of the same plant. That is gatonogamy. Please be careful. Okay, read twice, thrice time, you will understand. So careful when you write your sentence. Be careful. That is autogamy and gatonogamy. Cross-pollination. Let's come to cross-pollination. I hope you understood autogamy and gatonogamy. Okay. Cross-pollination. What happened in cross-pollination? The external agents are required. Okay. Now, before that, the cross-pollination are also called as allogamy. It has another name. It can be also called as allogamy or genogamy. Okay. It has different name. Allogamy. It can be also called as genogamy. So what happened in cross-pollination? It is the transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of the different plant of same species. Understood? Let me write. Transfer of, you will understand, don't worry. When you read it out once, twice or thrice, you will understand by yourself. Transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of different plant. Okay, not in one particular plant. Here in this pollination, it takes place in two different plants. So from one flower to the another flower of different plant, but it should be same species plant. Okay, it should be same species of the another flower of different plant of same species. So be careful. Remember, it should have similar species. Then only the pollination will take place. So what is cross, allogamy or genogamy? It is a transfer of pollen grain from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of different plant of same species. Okay, it should be same species. If it is different in species, the pollination will not take place. It should have same species. Okay, that is cross pollination. Now in this pollination, because it takes place in two different plant body of same species, the external agents are required, such as wind, insects, birds, right? There's some agency that required for the pollination to take place. So next, external, in this pollination, external agencies are required for pollination in cross-pollination, right? While in case of self-pollination, the external agency is not required because it is taking place by itself. But in case of cross-pollination, some other agencies are required for the pollination to take place because it takes place between two different plant body but of same species. So what are external agencies? We will discuss one by one along with the term given to that pollination. Okay, some external agencies like air, water, insects, birds are there for cross-pollination to take place. So if the pollination is taking place by wind or air, if the pollination is taking place, I'm writing it directly, wind or air, we call that pollination as anemophily. Okay, these are the terms given to that process. Pollination, not single L, double L, pollination. Okay, if the pollination is taking place by wind or air, we call that pollination as anemophilous or anemophily pollination. Okay, remember the term. For 1 mark, sometimes question asks. Now, if the pollination is taking place by water, in hydrophilic plant, the pollination takes place by water. Okay, we call it as that pollination. We call it as a hydrophilous pollination or hydrophily. Okay, if the pollination is taking place by water. Next, if the pollination is taking place by birds. If the pollination is taking place by birds, okay, if the bird carried out pollen grains into their body and enters into the stigma with the help of bird, then we call that pollination as ornithophily. So there is a different term given to that. Okay, remember those terms. Sometimes question asks for 1 mark. Ornithophily. Now I'll give you some few examples. Do it by yourself. If the pollination is carried out by insects, what we call that pollination? I'll give you homework. Do it by yourself. If the pollination is carried out by next bats, what we call that pollination? Write yourself. If the pollination is carried out by snails, so these three, write by yourself. Okay. So in cross-pollination, some external agencies are required for the pollination to take place because the pollination is taking place between two different plant body of the same species. So those agencies help in cross-pollination. While in self-pollination, external agency is not required. Understood? So these are the pollination. What is pollination? Transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma. That's it. That is pollination. So types, there are two types we find: self-pollination, cross-pollination, or allogamy or genogamy. Self-pollination, where they pollinate by itself, self-pollination. In self-pollination, external agencies are not required. Self-pollination are again divided into two types: autogamy and geitonogamy. Autogamy and geitonogamy. What happened in autogamy? Autogamy is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma. It is the transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of the same flower of the same plant, right? In case of geitonogamy, it is the transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. That's it. In such case, the pollination is taking place in one particular plant body. Cross-pollination, transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of different plant body but of same species. Remember, and in such pollination, certain agencies are required. External agencies like air, water, birds, insects, bats, snails are required for that pollination to take place. So there's a term given to every pollination. So remember, on those three, homework do by yourself. So these are the pollination. So we have discussed pollination. So far what we have discussed, we have seen the structure of flower. We have categorized flower into two types based on the essential and accessory flower. Remember the term. Then we have seen the structure of anther, right? And we have classified the anther, first classification, on the basis of the number of the lobes present on it. It is mono and dithecous. Then we have classified on the basis of the attachment of filament. We have seen those anther. Then we have seen the internal structure of anther. Layers of anther we have seen. Very important part, tapetum. It produces obese body like sporopollenin, which is most resistant substance in living world, right? Then after enter, we have seen the process of microsporogenesis, that is the process of formation of male gametes, that is pollen grains. So we have seen the process of male gametophyte, then we have seen the structure of female, we have seen ovule structure, then we have seen the process of megasporogenesis, that is the process of formation of female gametophyte, that is embryo sac. We have seen the process. Then pollination we have discussed. The male and female ready, pollination took place. Now fertilization will take place. The process of fertilization we will discuss in next video. Okay.